welcome back to PA Chalk Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we've got another whale guest, Bert Sorin. How are we doing?
Doing good, Manny. Thanks for having me, man.
It's all good. We kind of spoke at the beginning, and I explained what the whale concept is. Um, and I do just really want to say I appreciate you coming on and sort of
Of
spending
course.
some time with me.
Oh, of course. It's my honor. Appreciate it. I like we were getting to talk about Scotland. I haven't been there in nearly too many years since I've been up there, so I need to get back.
I mean, it's. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, like apart from back home in Portugal. But like here, it's if you live in the middle of butt fuck nowhere, it's the shit.
Yeah, no, we when I was there, we stayed in Newtonmore. I don't know if you're familiar with where
Yeah,
Newtonmore
yeah, yeah.
is. And man, that place was in the middle of nowhere. That being said, it was in 2007. So Daniel McKim and a couple of us were all up there for Highland Games.
Hmm.
And man, I was shocked. Like 5 o'clock, everything shuts down. It's like where'd everybody go? And if you want to go out for a beer or whatever, you better do it before dark. So we had to drive
Hundred
like
percent.
30 minutes to get food. And the only place that was a Chinese restaurant, which I found funny, that was in Scotland Highlands that you had to go eat Chinese. So
Yeah. So there's a lot of anomalies here. so so I'm from Portugal originally, but when we moved across, I think I was 9. But
okay.
like even then, I knew like life closed a lot later in Portugal. Like it
Uh-huh.
closed at like
Sure.
9, 10. But when I moved, everything closed at 5, and I was like, "What is going on?" Like
Yeah, you better.
legit, everything closes.
Yeah, yeah, better have your stuff pretty squared away, which was interesting. But I love the pace of life, and but take into account that's 2007, so that was before social media and iPhones and everything else there too. So that was just awesome, just being up there living, and it's probably
Yeah,
one of the last times I actually had just like a lack of input, which was I still hold that place in a very very high regard in my heart because yeah, it was just a great experience.
which is actually something I want to talk about, and it's the Highland Games,
Sure.
the stones that you've lifted, and the influence that some of this traveling sort of does for you and your equipment.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my dad, I mean, he always had it's kind of weird. We're like stuck between two worlds. You have a huge respect for what came before you and the tradition and the reason why we all are driven to strength and a strenuous lifestyle, and respecting those and honoring those that came before us, whether it be the Denny Stones or the Enverstone or, the Apollon's wheels or, the blob or the inch dumbbell lift or obviously regular weightlifting and powerlifting and stuff like that. So it's always great to understand where you came from and why these things are in us. And then we're also in the world of continually trying to push the envelope to move the industry forward with the tools and tactics. So I think that's given us an advantage in some ways because we're not stuck in the past. Although that's where a lot of effort and time has been, just really looking at that. And a lot of times you uncover things in the past that maybe the old timers understood, but or they
Mm,
understood that it worked, but they couldn't have told you scientifically why it worked. There was some hypothesis, but I think that's when you blend the science with the art, and the art a lot of times is just the living, the heartbeat of the iron game culture. So I think we've had some success for a number of reasons, but my dad and I are always trying to drive forward with design and how can we change the industry. But a lot of times it's to recreate a better scenario than we experienced doing it the old way while still keeping the essence of the old way. So
yeah,
that's I love that part.
I think that's one of the main questions I wanted to get into, and it's having your dad Richard Soren look at old Russian transcripts and manuals, looking at the landmine, doing it on a shoe, but then you develop the landmine from that. Like you really do go from something very like old school to then something innovative. How
Mhm.
was that sort of process when you look back into?
The weird part of the process, it was almost just a natural derivative of interest. I mean, there's so many things that we've invented that people say, "Oh, do you get your design team on it?" I go, "Yeah, the design team as in me and a couple guys here in the shop." And I text them, I say, "Hey, meet me up in the gym," and I'll be already out there with a piece of cardboard or a stick or something like that, like playing with angles and carving what I want into cardboard just to see visually, does it look similar to what I see in my brain? And then, you bring in the design team, that the guys in the shop that could actually go build it. And then you bring in a couple of my sales and marketing manager, Josh Dobby, or Phil Provitz, who's been here for years and understands the strength world. And so then you kind of run it past them because they have some other corporate knowledge of the industry. And you're like, hey, have you ever seen anything like this? Does this make sense? Or like, oh yeah, I think so and so did that before, but I didn't like the way the safety catch worked. And then, so it's still extremely organic. There might be a 2 week period of time that 5 new pieces are designed, that maybe only one or two
Wow.
make it to market. And there might be a 6 month period of time that nothing is designed, and we're just building weight rooms and making sure that the ins and outs and the pieces of everything are being properly project managed. But then it's almost kind of like a weird artistic surge, and usually like they'll go periods of maybe 6 months where a lot of new stuff will at least get started. And um and, and I guess that's kind of goes back to, there's no one driving it saying like you have to come out with a new design
Mm,
this quarter. There's none of that. Sometimes my sales guys hit me on an email or whatever, like, hey, it'd be really good if we had something that did this, and then we'll add it to the sheet of prototypes and process, and then either I'll jump on it or my guys will jump on it, or some. But a lot of times the ones that really change the game, strangely enough, are never planned. The landmine wasn't planned.
fair.
It was, hey pops, 1999. Hey pops, I want something that does this with a barbell. A friend of mine was showing me an exercise. They shoved a barbell in the corner, and it was this. And he's literally in between sets of doing high pulls, and he's like, oh, take the universal joint off of the spider row machine, put a pipe on it, and drop it into the platform, and that'll probably work. I mean, it was that long. That was the whole thing of the. And then so took it over to the shop, and I jacked with it until it worked and dropped in and
Worked.
everything like that. And then I got it, and I was showing him the exercise. So I was like, hey, good, this is what I wanted it to do. And then we came up with some other movements, pressing and rowing and snatching, and then because then you have the tool.
Hmm.
And then we were just, well, what do you want to call this thing? I don't know. Call it a landmine because it builds explosiveness at ground level. Okay, cool. We'll call it the landmine. It wasn't more to it than that. I mean, it wasn't. It
Yeah.
was, and it wasn't even made for us to sell. It wasn't a product. It was made as my secret weapon to train for the 2000 Olympic trials, because I had okay weight room numbers, and but I was still a little bit undersized for the hammer throw. And so I just had to see how else could I train my torso in a rotary fashion to throw the hammer far. It wasn't intended to sell. It wasn't intended to
Mm.
be one of the most copied pieces of exercise equipment in our generation. That's
How
probably
much did
the difference between being an inventor and an entrepreneur.
how much did the sort of having that at your disposal, do you think helped with the development from that very early age to then how you progress through as an athlete?
It was huge. Being able to have your finger on the pulse of training while you're doing it, attempting it to do it at the highest level, trying to get to the Olympic level, and having access to some of the best coaches and athletes in the world, like in real time, while you are also on that path, while you are inventing equipment. I look back and I feel very lucky and very blessed. I'm probably just, it doesn't make me special, just time, how it worked out. I'm probably one of the only weightlifting equipment designers that was able to do that at the time. That in an industry, I was in the industry making tools that were helping me in my quest for athletics. A lot of times it happens after someone gets after their years of, Arnold wasn't
Mm,
building weightlifting equipment when he was going for his seventh Olympia. Not putting me in the same category as Arnold, but they're you either had one or the other,
mhm,
and in one way, I think I was just very blessed to be in a situation where we had a shop. My dad was at the peak of his inventing. He was 50 years old. He'd had 20 years in the industry. He'd been building things and designing things since he was 10 years old. I'd been working in the shop for the last 5 to 7 years, so I had some interest. And then I knew that I didn't have the tools currently to be the level of athlete I wanted to be. So I was just going to have to start coming up with
Hmm.
basically strategic tools. Had I already been an Olympian and just maybe I wouldn't have tried to do it. Maybe I'd have been like, "Hey, everything's working great," but I wasn't. I was a walk on that had to prove myself daily against better and better and better competitors, and so I was always looking for that edge. And so when you're doing that, you're either looking for hardware or software or some type of
Hmm.
application or strategy that helps you to get to that next level. And I think just the drive for that kept me flipping over every rock. And I say me as in my dad, our company just kept us flipping over every rock. And we're interested. Like if you're interested in this stuff, you'll do it whether someone's paying you for it or not. I just got lucky that that was my job. I'd still do it
Hmm.
regardless.
I think that's what a lot of the passionate coaches that I personally follow have in common. It's you if money wasn't a thing and
Still do it.
we didn't need it, we would still be after it.
100%. 100%. I've thought about it. Some people's like, why don't you sell Sorinex and ride off into the sunset? And I'm like, well, what then would I do? Right? Like, this is what I do. like, I think we still have some pretty cool designs that haven't been done yet. And it's like asking a painter to stop painting,
Mm,
and I don't mean to put myself in some kind of elite status like that, but it's just what I like to do. We've had some
yeah,
success, and now our staff and our team, we're all thinking very similarly. So we're all bouncing ideas off of each other, and so it's the fun. But like you said, if you weren't, you would still be writing programming and helping athletes, whether they're being paid for it or not.
100%. And I think like as a strength coach, the first like 3-4 years, like you're working for free. So it's
Of course.
like when you see people being like, "Oh, it doesn't pay me," and then I don't want to do it. It's kind of like, well, is your passion really there?
No one's ever paid me to fish either, but I still want to do it every time I get. Like,
Exactly.
and that's the thing. I guess the difference, because some people, they look at what they do for a job with the idea of getting paid as much as possible. I tend to look at it almost a little bit the opposite. And I want to be profitable and sustainable so I get to keep doing this. It's a
Mm.
different idea. One of them is I want to do this so I could get paid so I could quit and not do it anymore, versus I want this to succeed so me and my staff could continue to do this. Two different
Mhm.
things.
I think it goes back to that leadership and intrinsic, extrinsic motivation. When I'm obviously I'm not in Sorinex's headquarters, but I can imagine like it's a family, and B, everyone's sort of making sure that everyone's got the next piece so that they can fully go forward and explore the best way possible.
Sure. And we work for our customer. That's the bottom line. We work for the industry. And our goal is to make great equipment that makes people stronger, more durable, soldiers harder to kill. Like that is our job, in my opinion. And we work for the customer, we work for the industry. If they choose not to purchase from us anymore, then maybe I'll have a whole lot of time to fish. Like I have nothing else. You know. And so I think that's the key to realize that without being valuable to the customer basis, we're
Mm.
we're, we're nothing.
I will say one of the most, in my opinion, underrated Sorinex equipment is the leg roller, like the little
The dude,
GHR roller.
do you know that's our best selling piece of all time?
I would not put that past anyone.
Crazy. And that piece, I don't know if you've heard the story on that. Like probably 22 to 24 years ago, 25 years ago, somewhere. Heck, it might have been a little further. I was training a kid that had been born with his legs were kind of messed up. They were kind of crinkled under him where his knees wouldn't extend. And
Oh,
I was training him, and my goal for him is he could barely walk, and my goal for him, I wanted him to run. So we were trying to do some different stretching and mobility stuff and some different exercises. So I made this piece of equipment that basically was just a roller. I made it out of wood, and he would sit on his butt and he'd put his heels on the roller, and we would stack weights, and it would just slowly open up his legs. But then we started realizing that he could he could he could flex his knee as well, and started building his hamstrings. And so this was just something we did literally probably 98, 99, 2000, somewhere in there. Always just kind of remembered it. He was a good kid. He ended up moving around pretty good. And so there's something we always remembered. So fast forward 10 to 12 years later, one of the guys in our shop started lifting weights. And he had asked, he said, was there something else I could do for hamstrings? And in the gym at the time, we didn't have a leg extension or leg curl machine in there. I said, actually, there was this old thing I made a long time ago that would probably work well. And that was when people were doing like heel to butts, like kind of leg curl moves,
Razors.
but they were doing it on a ball. And I never liked the ball
Oh,
because when you're on your back and your feet are on the ball, as you're rolling the
oh, okay.
ball,
Yeah.
it changes the load parameter so much, and you're using gravity to roll you downhill, so you never really got a good bite with your hamstring. But then if you use the valve slides, they work pretty well, but you couldn't load them appropriately, in my opinion. And so I said, yeah. And so I literally walked through the shop, and he was one of our welders, and I pulled pieces of scrap out of the scrap bucket,
Mm.
and we had a like a big bucket of wheels. And I literally put four wheels on his welding table with pieces of scrap. And I was like, I needed about this wide, and I grabbed two pieces of round, and I put it on his thing, piece of angle iron. I go, weld these together, and I'll show you something. And I knew we wanted to hook the heel
Hmm.
to kind of drag it. And Al Miller had shown me plate drags 20 years ago, but it just didn't. It's a longer
It
story.
can be a bit stiff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so then we made a little wooden track for it to go in. But anyway, we've just played with this stuff for years and years. So we made the first glute ham roller that only had the channel V on there, and it worked really good. And
Hmm.
so that was what he started using for his hamstring work. And then I got looking at it, I said, well, gosh, let's put two bars on it. Then we could use it for upper body maneuvers. And again, one of those wasn't really looking to sell it. It was for my buddy, and then you paint up one, and then you show it to some people. They think it's cool, and there you go. You know?
To be fair, the first time I was introduced to it, I was across there in the US, and like I can't remember what we were doing specifically, but it involved leg curls,
Mm-hmm.
and he had like all the leg curl machines that you could think of, but he was like, "Try this one."
Right.
I was like, "All right." I was like, and I got on, and I was like, "Fuck!" The day after, I was like, "Nah,
Yeah.
that's not it."
Yeah. And actually, prior to that, between the two times, we took remember the old ab dolly with the little handles and they had the
Hmm.
four swivel wheels? From about 2004 or five, we used to take that piece and hook a band and load it.
Okay.
So then I would do like four sets of four. I call them speed hams, and I would contract really hard with my hamstrings. But the downside of that was when your amortization phase where you went from concentric to eccentric, when I wanted to turn them over fast,
Mm,
the little swivel in the wheel would kick it
but,
sideways each time. And it just annoyed me. And you'd have to get it just right or it would kind of cruise out. So I
mhm,
thought about that piece. I said, well, if the wheels are always stable, then you could actually more like what I call a sewing machine. You just boom, 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 back and forth. So that was why we also put that additional handle on there to band load it because it kind of becomes an accumulation of like stuff that you've always wanted to fix, but you kind of
mhm.
never got around to it. And then I mean that unit we made for I don't know 12 or 15 years now, and it's changed very very little. Maybe we should change it more, but it's so simple
It's
that
not broken.
right, right. It's so simple. It's like, gosh, and to this day, I probably couldn't even tell you what the actual dimensions of it are because I think the first one it was like 23 and a quarter inches because it was whatever was in the steel
Mhm.
pile. And I think we made it a real nominal distance now, but like for a while, it was just like replicate that. It worked out. It's
Yeah,
always weird,
I mean,
right? Like you could sit there all day long or for a year and try to like come up with something. If someone was like, come up with a great hamstring movement, you're like, I don't know, you'd come up with some wacky
mhm.
nonsense generally. And then, I mean, we've come up with some wacky stuff that never makes it to the market. And then, then something that takes 10 minutes is,
Have you ever wondered how I'm able to run my business, my podcast, and still be able to coach? Well, I use TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is an all in one coaching software that reduces the amount of time that we spend on the back end of programming, on our Google Sheets, on our Excels, and allows me more freedom to do testing. With this podcast and episodes, I'm actually able to run some programs that I learned through different coaches coming on. To find out how you can use TeamBuildr and how it can apply to your own program, visit the link in the description and catch yourself a 30-day free trial. Just simply use code PACHOCUP, that's PACHALQUP, and start the next stage of your coaching career. What's the one that you wanted to work but didn't? And like why
Oh
did it
gosh,
not work?
there's so many ones that you wanted to work. The ground gainer was always a piece that was really cool, and I'm playing with it again now because I still think it could have been better. I'm playing with it again now. The back attack, always I wanted it to adjust better, and now it does. And so that's a 25-year-old piece that we've just done
Mhm.
some additional work on. Um, sometimes a piece works well, but it takes a little too much to adjust it or to get in, or it's a little ahead of its time. Like
Yeah,
people
sure.
might not
Yeah.
fully understand what it's supposed to do, and then later, maybe it gets copied, then it gets used by a bodybuilder on Instagram, and all of a sudden people are like, "This is the coolest thing ever." I'm like, "We had that in 1985," and that it just means we were bad marketers. Like it just means we were bad at showing people what it was, right? I mean, I
You
always
kind
thought
of
that.
said something.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, no, you're good. No, you're
Like
good.
you ever seen the dumbbell scoops where you could take your dumbbells and tilt them out onto your
Hmm.
chest? I mean,
I actually saw that video today. I was scrolling, like just busy
yeah.
scrolling, and
I mean,
that
we've
that
had
came
those
up,
in
and I
our
was like,
gym since I
wow.
was in seventh grade. I'm almost 49 now, and had them forever. And it was one of those. We put them in a number of gyms and everything. And if you don't have them, you don't realize how cool they are. But then when you do have them, you're like, oh my gosh, these are awesome. But they just never really caught on, just for
Mhm.
one reason or another. Sometimes it's getting people to speak a different language is difficult.
Especially in this, I mean, SNC right now is getting very boxy, where everyone's putting everything in each box, and
Yep.
everyone has to be very stiff with their formulas and processes. Um, and I kind of want to take it back to what we were saying in the lobby, and want to get your process. But like it's those ideas that you have, and you have to do something with it or put them in the shelf just now. Can you take through your process on a how that's sort of impacting the way the Sorinex is working, and then how that's sort of evolved Sorinex through these processes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely essential that myself and my staff continue to train, even though I'm not training for powerlifting, Olympic lifting, grip sport, Highland Games, or track and field anymore. Like I'm not. I'm training. I'm kind of training for outdoors pursuits, but really I'm training to, like I said, keep the old man away, right? Like as I get older, I still want to be as strong and as functional as possible, and I don't want to, as Jocko and I were talking about, like not submitting a movement, right? And one
Mm,
day he and I were talking. I said, "What'd you do today?" He goes, "I did some snatches and some." And I kind of stopped, and I kind of laughed because he's a couple years older than me. I said, "You snatched today?" And then he looked at no. I said, "You still snatch?" And he looked at me. He goes, "You don't?" And I was like, "Well," and I said, "Well, my shoulder," and I had a couple of excuses. And then he goes, "Can you snatch the bar?" And I go, "Well, yeah." And he goes, "Then it's ego. It's not that you can't do it.
mm,
It's just you don't like only snatching the bar." And he told me, he says, "Don't." He says, "Submit your ego. Don't submit the movement." He's like, "Do not submit that because one day you won't be able to do a snatch or a clean or a sprint or a jump. The things I used to live on,
mhm,
but just because." And I realized it was ego because I couldn't snatch 280 pounds anymore. I wasn't super interested in it anymore because it wasn't how I made my money. It wasn't how I threw far, and I wasn't really good at it or relatively good at it. So it wasn't really high on the priority list. He's like, "Yeah, but one day you'll go to snatch and you can't do it anymore."
mm,
So how my training is now, I'm just trying to make sure that I don't lose things. I don't want to submit the movement on things. So that being said, like I'm continually training, and all my best designers, all my best salespeople, all of them train because they just understand it better. And so that's a big part of the process. And the more people in my shop that train, they're generally the better employees that they get it the most because they're just,
mm.
even if you're welding something together and you're around it all the time, not to weld it upside down because you see it every day, right? Like it's
Hmm.
hard to ask, you know, tab A goes into slot B, and you could get it wrong if you're not super familiar with it. So that's a big part of the puzzle. And because of that, in training sessions for myself are very rarely just training sessions. I'm screwing with stuff and dreaming up stuff the whole time that I'm training. I'm playing with handles, I'm playing with positions, I'm playing with load parameters. It gives me something to do between sets, but I find that's where my brain eventually just goes to because I like it. And so
Hmm.
um, part of my process is to train and to talk with other strength coaches, learn other exercises, try new things, and then maybe someone teaches you a new application, and then you go and you try it, and then you realize that, oh, this aspect of this application isn't doesn't feel great. Could I build something that makes this better for the industry? Like for instance, 2001, I was in Athens, Georgia, training with of all the throwers down there, and Terry Steer, who's now Terry Cantwell, who her son is Jackson Cantwell, the number one recruit out of high school right now for football. She had this box made that was like this trapezoidal plywood box, and she was doing rear leg elevated squats on it. And I'd never seen anyone do that. People call them Bulgarians now, but
Hmm.
as of 2001, I'd never seen anyone do it before. And later I found out that box was actually something that was built and designed by Al Miller, the legendary strength coach down in the Georgia area. He had them. Well, anyway, they had a couple in the Olympic sports room for the throwers. And so she was using this. I'd never seen it before. So I went back and tried to put she was doing 265 pounds for a set of four, which is pretty darn strong
Heavy.
for anyone,
Yeah.
much less a female. And I went back home. I was like, gosh, I got to try that. And I put my foot on a bench and my foot wiggled all around.
Hmm.
And I couldn't do more than 95 pounds. And I was like, how the heck is she so strong? Well, A, she was very strong. B, I had realized, I said, well, gosh, I'm turning this overload movement into a stability movement. I don't want necessarily stability. This is not a balance movement for me. This is a single leg overload movement. So I went out in the shop and welded two T's together, put a bar in between them with a roller pad, and that's a single leg squat. And then I
Hmm.
realized that my random height wasn't just right for different level athletes. So I put tubing and pop pins, and then that's how the single leg squat unit was. But had I not been in Athens, Georgia, training for the nationals at that time with a group of throwers, seeing a new exercise, took it upon myself to go do the exercise. When it didn't work as well as I'd wanted it to, build something that works, then that probably wouldn't have been a piece of equipment in the industry.
Hmm.
That's the process right there, in my opinion. Yes.
100%. And that brings me to two stories. And the first one is in UCLA, the football team. The coaches there have some rules that the wait staff have to follow, or they get fined. And it's they can't take the elevator.
Oh wow.
They so everyone has to take the stairs. They have to train.
And I built that
And
room a long time ago, and it's down a long set of stairs. It's a pain in the butt to bring equipment down. I will tell you that.
I've not been fortunate enough to go there, but I've spoke to the coaches and
It's like this getting down to it. Are you?
oh, nice. That's difficult.
That sucks.
But for the athletes, they also have like a cash in, cash out rule, so they have to do some hard shit at the beginning, leave
Yeah.
with some hard shit too. And I think to your point, it's exactly that. It's your staff have to a know the program
Hmm.
and b experience it. Like I always say, like everything that I program, I've tried it at
Yes.
least, and if not just for me knowing how it feels on the body, but I also need to know like when it starts sucking and when I need to step in and be like, let's go, you're almost there. Like just
Right.
so I can give encouragement, the right motivation to keep that athlete still at that same pace, still at that same momentum.
Exactly, because you couldn't just guess what they're feeling. I posted a video last week of doing what we called man makers. We did them 20 years ago, and it was a 100-pound dumbbell with a non revolving 2 inch, a little under a 2 inch handle, non knurled, and we just had this weird set of dumbbells in the gym, and we would go over and do a high pull from the floor, right handed, left handed. It was 5 times 5 each arm, and there was only one set of dumbbells. It was a 100-pounder. Yeah, there it is. And that was I hadn't done them in years, and I just like, oh, I'll do them again. And it was pretty cool because Zach Evanash and a couple other guys and Rusty Witt and they all texted. They're like, "These are awesome! I want to start doing them." And Rusty told me last week his O line and D line, that was their buy-in. They came into the weight room and the first thing they had was 5x5 with 100 pounders under 12 minutes, and he said they moved 140,000 pounds of weight as a team in 12 minutes. And you look at
Holy
it, and that
shit.
made me very happy because I'm going, wow, I helped create a, I mean, I know other people have done them before. It's just what we did, right? But it just sparked a little thing of like, hey, this is just some hard ass work. There's not a lot of science to it. Yes, you're going to have shoulder stabilization and trap and a little bit of bicep and grip work and forearm and brachioradialis, and you're going to get, you know, cross lateral. You could science it up all you want,
Mhm.
or you're just going to move a shit ton of weight relatively fast with all of your body, jack up your heart rate, break a sweat, and you're gonna. If I've always kind of prescribed that as if you could do 5x5 at 100, you're relatively strong, and you're going
Strong.
to do kind of what you want to do on a football field or any other sports field. Like that's just kind of a litmus. Like it's like
Mhm.
you could jump up and bang out 10 pull-ups. Pull-ups aren't your problem. Same kind of thing. You could do man makers with 5x5 at 100. You're good. You're good. We could tweak that, but it also, yes, mentally I feel pretty strong, and then that's a good just buy-in. So I'm going to try to
100%.
start putting those back into the session every couple of weeks because
I love it.
yeah.
So when I was in the States, I'd been doing it unbeknownst to myself, but it's experiencing the dark side of training and like how important that is, not for just athletes, but for anyone who's perhaps not had the best life experiences. And
Mhm.
it's the concept of doing hard shit, pushing beyond what you think you can safely, anyways.
Yes.
But it's still being able to like because me, I see the transfer in. Okay, if I get my athlete to do say 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off as fast as you can, 12 times,
Ugh.
4 minutes of work, but it's
Yeah, sure.
fucking brutal. It's brutal.
Terrible.
Like, but by the so like, and there's usually like you start on 2 sets, but you build it out to 4 sets. So that's like 16, yeah, 16 minutes of work total. And again, 16 minutes isn't a long time in training, but when you're doing
Yeah,
10 seconds on, 10 seconds off, like by the first set, you're like, fuck you, coach, fuck everything. I don't
right,
like you. Never fucking do that to me again.
right.
But when they make it through, they're like, oh shit, I did it.
Yeah,
And
you've
then when
raised the bar of their capacity.
100%. And then, so I always tell them, like, imagine you're playing your toughest game ever and
Yeah,
you've done these. You know that your comparative probably hasn't
right.
because he's A, doesn't have a psychopathic coach, but that's
Sure.
nor here nor there.
Sure. It helps. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also know that from all this intensity that you've built up, whatever comes on, you know you can fucking push through it.
That is, I would say that is one of the bigger, and all these strength coaches I hope I would agree. That's one of the bigger parts of the weight room in itself. It's just it's expanding those borders of your comfort and what you know is possible. Like, you know, do a 405 for 20 back squat, and you'll rethink life at about number 8, and then
Mhm.
on like at number 15, you're on a different planet, and then on like 17 through 20 you're in a different dimension, but when you get done you're like, oh, so okay, so I can become a superhuman for a minute, and I can live in this weird rarefied air, and I can tell the world to f off, and I can grit my teeth and fight and taste a little bit of my own blood and all that stuff, and I'm okay after that. And then you walk into
Mhm.
the next day when something's really hard or sucks, you're like, yeah, but I have
Exactly.
that little gear, and I had a bunch of pitching coaches in yesterday. We were talking about pitching and about teaching baseball. And they were talking about that the paralysis by analysis of getting too scientific and getting too breaking down of all the form and this and that. They said we've seen a lot of athletes be ruined over that, and sometimes it's almost like joking and laughable, like the Kenny Powers model of just the F you, I'm just going to throw harder and be better, and I don't care what comes with it. That's a superpower. And, we laughed. We're like, as a pitcher, I'm just making up a number, but like if you have a 400-pound back squat in your pocket, that's just some good just strain and aggression that you could have when you know you're like, I'm stronger or at least as strong as the guy on the other end of this ball, and I don't
Mhm.
give a shit what's gonna happen. I'm gonna freaking stroke this thing past him because I'm that guy. And man, that goes a
100%.
long way. That goes a
100%.
long way. There was a couple of times that you're in the ring, like throwing or whatever. You're like, F this. I'm just gonna pull the living shit out of this because I need
Just
to win
fucking
right.
launch it.
Yeah, I need to win right now. Like, screw the technique. I'm going to hit the third turn and yank the living shit out of this with my X number pound power clean, and let's just win this thing and go home. It works, you
I
know.
mean, I think that you're kind of tapping into that motivation, but like all athletes think that they're better than the next guy,
Sure,
right?
you have
Like
to.
you have to,
You have
100%. You have
to.
to. Like it.
Don't show up.
But the thing is, like, technically and like tactically in sport, you have to think that you're better. But when you've got like these other dimensions of like, actually, I fucking back squatted 405 the other day. Did I need to? Probably not. But fuck it, I can do it.
If it
Did
gives
I?
you this much more of a psychological advantage, that could be what it takes.
100%. And I
That's,
think
that's being
that's what a
lost.
lot of athletes, and again, I'm Europe side, so soccer is a prominent sport here, and those guys do not like training.
Right.
But like the ones that they do, like, okay, his methodologies might not be the best sometimes, but Cristiano Ronaldo,
Mhm.
fucking amazing athlete. He
Sure.
hustles in the gym, but
Right.
like he knows that technically he's there, but physically he's also prepared to fucking push.
Yeah, and he knows if and there's the lack of the intimidation or the lack of intimidation factor. If he's trying to slide tackle into somebody or get the ball or someone's coming to him, he's like, "Nah, you ain't got what it takes to take this from me." Period. End
Hmm.
of story. Like, for whatever reason gives him that insight or that whether he just smashed a big set of cleans or squats or he did some crazy workout that makes him feel like Superman. It doesn't matter how you got there,
Hmm.
because does that other guy want it worse than I do? And does he believe he could take it from me? And if he doesn't believe he can't, he can't. And
Exactly.
it's so that's the part I
Yeah.
love. That's the interesting
Yeah.
part.
And so
Right?
the what fires me up too is like, how can I make this athlete fucking better? Not just up here, but like give them fucking strength that they can just fucking abuse.
Yeah. And sometimes, unfortunately, I mean, I had a coach that was really, really tough on us in college. And sometimes, I'll be honest, it ain't the most positive reinforcement. I know we're all supposed to do the positive reinforcement, this and that, but even my dad loved him to death. But that guy made me so pissed off so many times in the weight room. And in his coaching style was generally not like you're the man. It was you don't have what it takes, but there's a sliver of a chance of you to walk through this door right now and prove that you're the guy. I'm telling you right now that you're not the guy. Prove me wrong right now. Here's your
Mm,
chance. And so I worked really well off that. That was very, very effective for me. But that's also why within the industry, when people bag on us, I'm like, you're a fool, because that's exactly what I thrive on. Like,
mhm.
my how I'm built is for people to say, "Oh, screw you guys." I'm like, "Oh, you effed up
Right
now."
on.
Like, that's what I like. And but I had a Richard Sorin basically telling me, "Oh, you can't do that." But and they, there was but it was very brilliant coaching. It was, I don't believe you could do that, but if you're going to prove me wrong, here's your map, and then
Mm,
leaves it up to you. My throws coach in college did the same thing, and it was, you suck, you suck unless and then if you're a gamer, you'll just find that opportunity. You got to go, oh, cool.
mm,
I could basically shove it up your butt right now. I could dunk on you right now and shut your ass up if I'm gonna, you say I can't do 500 for three. All right, well, f you. I'm gonna do it for five, and make it
mm,
a point. I'm gonna drill that point home and stamp it into your face that I can. Well, that's what he wanted anyway, right? Like,
mhm.
that was the move. That
Some
was what
reverse psychology.
the response of. And so I enjoy coaching like that. Like, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
just dunk on me, slam it in my face. Let's go. Like, I'm giving you the opportunity. And you can find out real quick the athletes who will or won't
Oh,
go.
100%.
Yeah.
I think so. One of the first ever industry books I read was Conscious Coaching by Brett Bartholomew.
He does a great job.
He does. And so for me, having that, the best. that was the best book I've ever read in terms of starting off young. Because like now I focus a little bit more on, okay, who have I got in my weight room? Who can I scream at, yell at? Who do I maybe need to go a little bit gentle? Who
Sure.
can I say you can't fucking do that? And
Right.
that'll drive them like yourself. And it's like exactly knowing who you have in
Right.
and how to cater for that.
Yeah, those people are very easy. It's almost like if you're ever turkey hunted, like those are the turkeys that will always respond to your call. They're super easy to get what you want them to do. The hard kids are the ones that don't respond to that, and then you obviously got to tweak that a little bit. And I've found you kind of have to trick them into how strong they are at times. And then you come back later and go, "Hey, man, did you notice this?" I'll sometimes miss weight. I'll load the bar for them, tell them it's a different amount, they'll do it, and then you go
Mm,
back and do the math with them, stuff like that. But it's the key of like what Brett's saying and what all the good coaches. I mean, they're the best. The best coaches or the best leaders are generally the best sports psychologists. They just
mm,
understand how to elicit responses from their team. It's not always the same thing. Yeah, the guys that are like me were super easy to coach. You challenge me, you piss me off, and it's pretty predictable what I'm going to come with. I was very easy to coach, right? But not everyone's as simplistic as I am.
100%. I think, kind of name dropping here. When I was having that dinner with Dr. Brian Mann,
Yeah.
it was kind of like that. I was seeing a lot of like people telling me can't. He's fucking going after it two times harder.
Oh, and the worst thing you could do to a guy like Brian Mann is tell him he's really great, and everyone tells him he's really great for a long time, and because he doesn't thrive on that. He thrives on. He had a really hard upbringing, a really hard life. Like he is a fighter and he's a survivor, and utmost respect. But if I was his coach, you kind of have to know that, right, with him.
Mhm.
And I bet you could get. Well, that's what he built his whole thing off of, right? A lot of us do.
Yeah. To the second story that I was going to say, and it kind of tied into your snatching story. And it's sometimes when I'm with my dad, I'll challenge him to do certain exercises. Like for me, jumping's one of the best ones because I'm like, I bet you can't jump. You're getting old. You can't jump. So
Hey,
he's like, okay, leaps. But
oh, oh yeah, yeah. Pops used to laugh. He was like, I don't even know if I remember how to jump anymore. He's like, I'd be like an alligator. I would just like hop, and nothing else would happen. We would always laugh about it.
so that sort of came from like I saw a video, I think it was on Instagram, and it was essentially telling us the regression of movement because society tells us that we shouldn't do certain movements because it's childish or whatever. Um, and that was my thing to be like, oh fuck, we do. Like, there's a certain point where people just stop jumping, they stop running, they stop doing like things that as a kid, as a child, you
Right.
thrive on. Um, so then I went on this massive loop to see like what movements have we lost from just society saying like you need to act and walk and move
Yeah.
in a certain way.
Just like Jocko said, what did you submit unknowingly?
So it was like the baby rolls, the neck rolls, the tummy time, like moving your body in ways that are awkward, but it unlocks that certain movement. For me, again, I'm a bit weird. So my granny was 90, she's 97 now. She must have been 94, 95. Like I made her jump. Like
Awesome.
she didn't jump. She like did a Michael Jackson. Like that was like it still elicits some response, and I was
Oh,
like,
that's
"Fuck yeah!"
amazing. Yeah. It's interesting when you talk about the tummy time, the rolling. Is that some of the Tim Anderson stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah. So Tim was here for Summer Strong a few weeks ago, and I literally had
I
this
saw that. I was so
conversation.
jealous.
Oh, he's so great. But I had a conversation with he and Chip Morton at dinner, and I told them, I said, unfortunately, I used to be pretty fast and could jump relatively high, but I feel like my body currently doesn't feel overly safe to do that. I've had
Mm,
some injuries while sprinting. I'm a bit older. I'm not just not doing it like I once did. And so one of my pieces, I asked him at dinner, I said, could you help me regain confidence in my body to do those things that I used to do pretty exceptionally well? And so one of the things is jumping and one of them is sprinting. I said, I'm not trying to like break any 40 times,
mm,
but I want to be able to, if I wanted to run a 40, I want to do it knowing that I won't blow a hamstring off. and if I jump, I want to know I'm not going to blow out an Achilles. And so I've been doing a lot of his movements, whether like as a whole progression and the crawling and rocking and head movements. And so actually, I'll be doing that today. That's how I'm going to do my warm up today, and with Luke Day, and Luke's a great friend of mine, kind of helping me apply how that stuff works. Um, but it's interesting you're talking about that, and that stuff looks frou and it looks kind of strange, but I'm literally on that task right now because at 50 I want to you know be able to still. I have some markers. I want to hit certain lifts. And the
Hmm.
lifts I know I could get to, but I want to be able to sprint if I feel like sprinting. I want to jump relatively high again. So yesterday I just did like 4 sets of 3. I think it was 24-inch box jump. Try to like land pretty straight legged,
Hmm.
and it's only 12 jumps. It's fine. It's fine, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
6 inches
relatively low
higher than
load.
last
Yep.
week, and it's 6 inches higher than the week before. And I literally started with 6-inch box jumps. I could have done significantly more, but what I was teaching myself was, oh, I'm just doing the movement, and hopefully I'll live a really long time, and a gradual progression is totally fine.
I mean, especially posterior chain. Like, I don't know if you know, but there's this company that does this really good glue ham roller. I think it's called Sorinex or something.
I've heard of them.
But like, I resonate with that a lot. I'm a bit younger. I'm 29, but like, I still think
Work.
that, huh?
Your body still works. Good.
Yeah. I played rugby, so
Uh,
we'll go shaky.
uh,
So like sprinting is still a very big part of what I do, and with like some of the speaking engagements that I do, I go over sprint mechanics, speed. Like, I still want to be able to show that. Like
yes.
like
Yes.
throughout my whole life, I still need to say like, okay, this is what we're doing. I still want to demo.
Right. You know who's really, really good at it still is like Lauren Landau. Like,
Yes.
holy crap. I mean, he and I are the same age. He might be a hair older. But man, when he demos, you're like, dude, are you? And but you realize he's still doing it every day. He's great at it. And that's like one of those people you look and like, okay, you live this. You still do this stuff. Um,
Hmm.
and I never got away from it 100%, but it went from I could sprint really fast to I could sprint really fast for short distances to I'm gonna do some jumps to I don't really need to do that right now. I still know how to do it to well, I haven't sprinted in a long time. And then,
Hmm.
you have a couple beers with your buddy and you race and all of a sudden you're laid up on the back porch for a while.
I think that's some of the. Oh, I was at a wake yesterday, and I was
You were
challenging one of
racing.
the guys.
You
Pardon?
were racing in a wake.
No, so I was challenging the. So I was like, he had a program planned. I think he was to run 12K that
Mm.
for his program, and I was like, fuck it, we should get steaming, get absolute rat-assed, and go for this 12K. uh,
You are Scottish. That's good to hear.
well, I've lived here long enough. Yeah, I've kind of became them.
Oh, yeah, no, I loved it. Half the fun of Highland Games was getting some whiskey in you by the end of the
Mm.
event, and headbutting each other at the pub that night.
Like, this is like a true story. Like, I wish this wasn't real.
Those are the best stories. If you started with "I wish this wasn't real."
When I was playing rugby at a decent level, we were like 16 to 18s, 20, like tipping onto the 20s, and we'd get like so. The way my rugby was set up, we'd have a school game and then a team game. So I was playing Saturday,
Mm,
Sunday back to back.
right.
So we would win the Saturday, get absolute steaming the night at night because we won, celebrating,
Of course, yeah, as you should.
play rough as shit, and it was like the best games that we've ever played. Like,
Oh, dude, yeah.
there was no, we were unbeatable. It was unreal.
That's amazing. So kind of funny. So we did the Newtonmore Highland Games. I think we
Yep.
were when we competed. It was a 2 day. It was USA versus Scotland. It was Friday and Saturday, and then Saturday night we went to the Newtonmore Hall, which is like it was crazy. It was like I think it was like the city hall, and then Friday, Saturday night it was like the bar, the dance hall, and then I think Sunday it was the church. I think it was like a one single building. But man, we went out and got ripped after because we trained all year
Mhm.
for it. We showed up and did the whole deal, and we got just blasted. And about 2 or 3 in the morning, we decided that we wanted to go to Sterling on Sunday for a games they were holding there. And dude, they got me up at 6 or 7 in the morning. I'd been sleeping for 3 hours. Threw me in the van. Kilt is still on from the night before. You know, basically puked in the porta john, and I remember it was just pissing rain, and we're out there throwing and just having the best time ever because you're kind of still drunk and you start
Mhm.
burning it off and you get that little spike. And we had a pretty good time. And so of course Dan McKim doesn't drink, so he's just beating the crap out of all of us because he's like tuned up and ready. But and then the next day we went and lifted the Inver stones and the Denny stones. So we had quite the time. It was fun.
Yeah, it's weird how stuff like that happens. It's like you just go from one thing to the other and just
Yeah,
fucking
it's the
YOLO it.
best. You're with your boys. You have a van. You're driving around. Almost get killed all the time because they'll drive on the wrong side of the road and the wrong
Mhm.
side of the car. It was fantastic.
I had to ask you about Justin Linhard
Yeah.
because he is one
Uh,
fascinating dude,
Judd.
and yeah,
Yeah, Judd. Yeah,
and I know he was at Summer Strong uh,
yeah.
last year.
He spoke last year. He was there as a guest, just watching and hanging out this year.
Yeah, like his stuff is fascinating. The way he
It really is.
explores movement. How was that sort of going into the Summer Strong? And obviously, that's a whole event which I hopefully can get into in this
Oh, you
episode.
got to. Um, no, Judd is someone I started following. I mean, his Instagram is super cool. I mean, anyone that looks like that and is moving like that, definitely garners interest. So I started following him a year or two ago, and I reached out to him and I would kind of go with it. I would watch his content, and I loved how he moved, but then also like how he explained how he moved. And he and I got on the phone one day, and I told him I was like, and we both basically said, okay, you're the only other person that I've talked to that thinks of the movements and the load parameters like this. And it's hard for me to vocalize it at times. But when he and I got talking, I'm like, oh, you're saying the thing I've been thinking. I didn't know how to eloquently say it. And
Mm,
so we just kind of hit it off of just kind of our perception of some of the different movements. And he is absolutely brilliant, much more brilliant than I am by far in that world. I was just kind of dumbed down version of things that I had found. And then he came here to Summer Strong and spoke, and then I went down and did his podcast, and we got to hang out a number of times, and I'm just more and more impressed with how he creates his not necessarily Instagram content, but like how he takes movements that aren't
mm,
necessarily heavily loaded as many people thinks and adds different force vectors and adds different attack angles and things like and that's really what we were doing when we were coming up with the glute ham roller and the landmine. It's like, hey, let's take the things we know and let's change the force vector or the back attack that puts you in a more mechanically advantageous position while it increases the mechanical disadvantage. Looks like a good morning, looks like an RDL, but the load parameter is exactly opposite. And if you don't understand that, it looks very simple to what you think it is. But that's where I would see what Judd was doing and adding a cable, having a cable or a freeway, adding a band to it in a way that you wouldn't see it before, and what he was attempting to accomplish. Super interesting guy. Like there's a few people, he and Derek Woodsky, and a few other Cal Dietz for sure that I
Called it.
really just enjoy talking to because they so understand training at a different level. Um, and then
I
you
think
can
it's understanding the mechanics of movement.
Oh, it's so interesting. But Judd, I would say, is a bit of a renaissance man. Like he sees things on a different dimension than a lot of people see currently. He's actually doing some pretty original things from my perspective.
100%. That's why I followed him. I saw some of his content and I was like, this is different. Like
Yes.
everyone knows the obviously push pull, hinge, knee, like core attacks, sure. But like he's exploring movements that I mean kind of look nuts if you're just like scrolling by. But if you
Of
like
course.
study and understand what's happening, you're kind of like, fuck.
Yes, and when you look at the little nuances, I think he was doing a Zercher reverse lunge
Yep,
with
yep,
the
a twist. Yeah, yeah.
but did you notice that the front foot, I believe, was on a 20-kilo plate?
Also, like heel elevated.
I think it was a flat foot, but it just tells me, and I could be wrong. This is going from memory, but what I liked about it was he didn't just see someone do it; he was tweaking it to get exactly what he was trying to um, stress in the body, and it was for a reason. That's where I always like the being intentional with something. And so I want to shoot him a text and find out what was the reason. Maybe when he sees this, he'll just answer it. But that's the stuff I like to see. It's like when you see a guy with a like with their gun or something, they have something special on the scope or whatever. It's like it's very intentional. Like, why did you do this? Oh, because it solved a problem. Because I did it without that one time, and I felt this was better. And that's the mindset that I always like digging into, if that makes sense.
How much inspiration do you sort of draw from that?
A ton. I draw inspiration from stuff I see constantly, whether it's I follow a lot of different stuff just to see different movement techniques, or like Ryan Krauser is another one, the world shot put champion, Olympic champion, world record holder, and he and I talk a lot. Yeah, that was that movement. Yeah, see, oh yeah, and then okay, so why would he have
Hmm.
that other piece, did he have an additional level change, or is that adding something to the eccentric ability to stop and create more, but doing it
Yeah.
through creating more tension across the X of his shoulders and hips?
And by the way, there's 100 kilograms on that bar.
Yeah.
225.
Oh, he was doing it the other day. It was like 140. It's like, okay, dude, that ain't a little bit. He's strong as a freaking bull.
Yeah.
Um, and so anyway, Ryan Krauser, the same thing, instead of looking at shot put technique and trying to do what everyone else has done, he's changed shot putting for the last 4 or 5 years. He'll keep coming up with different techniques and throwing a little bit further, a little bit further. And he and I will get talking about techniques, and he's learning things from like the dance world, like from ballerinas to martial arts, like learning how to hit a certain hip extension, snap the knee, create more rotary velocity with his foot that turns this into this. And like that's the practitioners I always love, that aren't just saying,
Mm,
let me get better at the technique that everyone knows about. They're exploring every little corner, flipping over every little rock, and legitimately changing the game. And
mm,
not everyone's as gifted maybe to be the Ryan Krauser that you get to change the game and be the best ever to do it. um, that's just the perfect storm. But I love
mm,
those folks that are always playing with things. I showed Brian Mann the floating heel squat years ago, and it was more popularized by Cal Dietz. But how I was doing was actually a misinterpretation of what Cal was teaching with his foot up in a position like this. And I remember he was talking about it at Summer Strong, and I forgot how he did it. So basically, I just took a plate and had my foot neutral with just
mm,
a little about an inch between my heel and the ground. And one day I was squatting and my knee was hurting. And so then I tried, okay, I'm a wide stance squat with a vertical shin. Knee hurt even worse. Well, I'm going to go to a belt squat, see if that just, I can shift around the load parameter. Oh, that hurt even worse. I'm like, crap, man, I can't even squat today. This sucks. So I said, well, if I can't do a big overload, let me put these two 10-pound plates in the ground. I'm going to play around with some of that stuff that Cal was doing, and maybe I'll just like get some balance workout. I'm just trying to salvage
mm.
something of my workout. So I put my foot halfway on the plates, and I'll let my heels hang off, but still at neutral, not like, just be plantar dorsiflex, plantar flex.
Dorsey. Yeah.
And all of a sudden I had to shift very forward over my I had to shift my knee heavily over my toe, and immediately my knee pain went away. It's like,
Nice.
whoa, wait, what? And I couldn't figure it out. I was like, what the heck? Like how? And I was only not doing very much weight, but I was able to. It felt like it freed my hips up immediately, and
Mm,
my knee stopped hurting. And I happened to be speaking that next weekend with John Wellborn from Power Athlete. We were in LA, and it was John Wellborn and Brian Mann. And I go, okay, guys, I figured this thing out. I don't know what it is. You guys are smarter than me. Why does this work? And Brian Mann had just had his hip surgery, and he ended up squatting 300 pounds that day. And he was almost in tears. He was like, Bert, my hip doesn't hurt. I don't know why this feels. And so I know since then, Brian has started to use them, and I know John Wellborn has started to program them, and it was a misinterpretation of what I had on Cal Dietz's stuff. And now he and I were later able to talk about what it was and what the reasoning for it was. But the key of that whole thing is just to keep exploring, keep
Mm,
flipping over stuff. Just, hey, does this even make sense? Maybe it sucks. Maybe it's great. I used to talk to Louis Simmons about that. He's like, I would grab a bar in every possible configuration because if it would have made me deadlift more by grabbing the bar between my legs and backwards, if it made me stronger, I would do it. I didn't care
mhm,
what it was. And he goes, I would explore all of that and understand what it did to the body and how that could potentially make me better. And I think that when people truly love it, you'll do that stuff in the weight room. You'll
mhm.
figure some cool stuff out.
100%. So on that, I'm kind of piggybacking off that. So rugby, I've like completely fucked my shoulder, had surgery. It keeps popping out. I'm a little bit better because I've been intentional with it just now, so it doesn't suck as bad. But bench
Right.
pressing was the worst for me. I like it just like I was just pain all the time. So I was fucking around. I was like, right, I still like to bench. Like bench, like I'm not the best bencher, but I still fucking like to do it. So let me
Yep.
figure this out.
Yeah.
So I was playing around with grips. So I started narrow, went wider, same thing, hard the whole way through. Really being intentional about tucking my elbows in. Still sucked. And as a Hail Mary, I was like, I've got some fat grips. Let's see what happens.
Yep.
Fat grips. Um, Slapped them on, benched, zero pain,
Crazy, right?
zero. So like I've got his name is Josh Chung, and I was like, he's more physio, but
Okay.
he's kind of like what you're saying. He loves to explore movement. He had a JHR. He did like so. He was like kind of like 45. He wasn't full flat, but he was like about 45. So there was tension on his hamstrings,
Yep.
barbell on his back, twists. I was like, fuck.
Oh yeah.
But like, so I messaged him straight away, and I was like, "This has happened. I've just figured this out. Why?" And he was like, "Well, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I've never seen that done, but there's some nerve that runs from your thumb all the way up. So when maybe that you've got the fat grips on, it could actually alleviate that
Mm,
nerve tendon, so it kind of frees
right.
up for more movement." I was like, "That makes fucking sense."
Yeah.
So like now I just bench with fat grips.
And it changes it. Or like Pops used to bench with an easy curl bar that was a 6 footer that would be rackable, and it would just tilt his hands just enough, and
Mm,
and then he had a little bit of a pad on it, so it reduced range of motion just slightly, and then just tilted his hands just enough. And I remember at Sorinex HQ, there was a 5 or 6 year period of time that was the only bar that a lot of us benched on. I mean, people were benching over 500 pounds on that thing, and it was like people, were, why are y'all using that? And they go, just use it, and you'll your shoulders will help you. And it was just one of those weird. You just kind of find it. You go, oh shit, that feels good. What's
yeah.
the point in changing it? It's it's always that cool stuff, right? You unlock all those little keys, and I think that heel elevated squat, the more I talk to Brian, feels like it stimulates the gastroc having to stabilize the foot,
Mhm.
which goes across the back of the knee, which makes the patella track more, and then you have more knee stabilization that you just basically cue by having your heel not on something.
Yep.
And it's like that's good enough for me. I'm not smart enough to. It makes sense, right? But I'm just going like, why the heck? If my feet are flat, it hurts. If I take the pressure off my heel, 100% the knee pain goes away. And then you
Mhm.
go, oh, maybe I don't have to get surgery. I've turned on some different strength coaches to it, and they've hit me back. They go, oh yeah, when I have my knee guys, they're a little bit screwed up because we just float their heels and they're fine. We move on. I'm like, who knew, right? Like,
I mean, talking to Brian is different. Like when you get in a conversation with him,
oh yeah,
I was sort of talking about my research. You spoke about Starling. I'm actually heading there soon to
oh
finish
cool.
off my
William
research.
Wallace statue, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was like, I was getting his take on it, and I was like, I mentioned that I'm doing hormonal testing. So sorry to back up, I'm doing uh, physiological impact of the menstrual cycle on female athletes.
Oh wow.
And he was like, what are you testing? What's your considerations?" I was like, well, I want to see if it's so. Just now, when you talk to female athletes, it's a big deal. Like training on their period sucks.
Right.
But when you look at research, not every single physiolog. I'm struggling with words today.
Physiological.
Um, yeah, all those papers saying that there's no significant impact,
Mm,
but like when you talk to them, there is. So I'm like, well, okay, so is it more psycho or is it more physiological? Um, and I was like, well, I want to do hormonal testing to make sure that they're on where they're supposed to be throughout the whole thing. He's like, that's a really good idea. So like
sure.
me and him just got talking, and he like explains the whole processes and dives in, and I'm like, I didn't think of it that way. And it's like exploring these different nuances, and it like speaking with him is different.
Yeah, it really is. Like, especially if you get him drunk. These are a lot of fun. And
He
then I
did have a
really
beer.
didn't
He
understand it
did
because
have a beer.
yeah, because then he takes the filter off of like
Yep.
dumbing it down for us normal people, and then I'm like, hey Brian, go back to the other part where I understand it. That's really interesting. I'd be interested if you could coincide the. I guess I assume you're going to do blood work with the hormonal. I
I'm
wonder.
attempting. It's very political and it's funding. It's what I'm
Right.
struggling with the most.
But I wonder if you could do something like, are you going to do like physiological, like a mid thigh pull or something like that that would go along with it, or some other test, maybe even like reaction time test, or even something like vision. I wonder if the
Mhm.
hormonal changes would change some of visual acuity or something like that. That'd be interesting. If
Yeah,
you're doing it, might as well take them through a battery of
yeah.
tests.
So what I'm doing is I'm going to look at Hawk. I've spoke to Hawk and Dynamics. They're willing to partner up with it.
Great,
Spoke to Gym Aware. They're willing to partner up with it.
great.
Um, so it's kind of just I'm looking at those sort of key KPIs. I didn't think about cognitive stuff. That could actually be very interesting too.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, especially if it was a low barrier of entry to get the test,
Hmm.
maybe it's a might as well. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I never thought about it that way either.
Because if it's psychological, is it
Hmm.
going to affect the brain and like you said, from a cognitive standpoint, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of tests. I mean, I remember we used to like the tap test and all kinds of
Hmm.
different things. Um, you just would want to have something that would still remain relatively nuanced and novel.
Yeah. So
Like,
like I've been discouraged from doing this a lot, and this is something that me and Brian spoke about, and it's that whole "fuck you," I'm going to do it anyways.
yeah, that's the thing. Is like, what do you mean discouraged? Like, what people just don't want to know? Like, what the?
So it mostly came from lectures being like, "There's too many variables to control." I was like, "That's the whole fucking purpose." Like, not every single woman is the same. Not every single cycle is the same. So
Sure,
yes, variables are uncontrollable. That's the nature. Like
that's
sports
part
isn't
of it, right?
controllable. Like how many times have you been able to control every like as a male, just as a male, control every part of your performance? Very little.
Yeah, never,
Um
never.
so like and again, this is what I was speaking to Brian about as well. I was like, I'm like all the science coming out now is everything has to be controlled, everything has to be done a certain way, but like sport isn't that. Like
Right. And what is the value for even anecdotal evidence to prove that it's almost impossible to achieve that level of sterility in the testing? And part of me goes, yeah, we couldn't even replicate this to be, you know, so that just goes to prove that you can't make blanket statements about a
mhm,
woman's menstrual cycle based upon training because you can't hit it up right every time, and everyone's going to be different. Somebody might get stronger. They might get, who knows?
mhm.
I'd like to know.
Part two of that conversation was we already know what to do. You just fucking standardize a program to make sure it's flexible enough for them to train, but there's fucking nothing out there for it. Like
Right.
as again, I think this industry is common sense.
Yeah, and I think and there's a little bit of people want to substantiate their job and position by doing some of that. I mean, again, not to overly dumb it down, but I've seen a lot of athletes are very, very, very successful training pretty dumb.
Mm,
You know, train hard, relatively consistently, eat and go to sleep. It's about 90% of it right there.
yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
Now
That's
you've
just,
nailed it. You have nailed it.
I
Like
mean, if you aren't doing those things, let's kind of stop the conversation, right? Like,
100%. Like yeah, it's just wild. Like and I think I attribute this to the way that we become strength coaches. Like everything has to be done from a exercise science pathway, um, which then leads to that critical, that yes no box, that red, that black white. I get it, but like
Yeah.
when you then experience real sports, it's fucking uncontrollable as shit. Like the whole term preventing injuries, bullshit. You can mitigate it at best.
Yeah, you wonder, is it a legality thing to cover a CYA, cover your ass? Like, as long as you've done a lot of stuff that attributes back to research, at least you could say, "Well, I was going by what the book said." Like,
Hmm.
you can't sue me. I was going by what the book said. And reality is, in my opinion, a lot of shit happens at times, and that's just how it goes. I mean, every year there's a lot of strength coaches and strength professionals that have had a lot of letters behind their name that athletes still get hurt.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, some of them still pass away. It doesn't make them bad coaches, and it doesn't make them makes them unlucky at many times. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, someone goes a heat illness, well, or has a genetic,
Disposition, yeah.
predisposition. Stuff happens, man. Like, we know the stakes. Of course, you want to minimize it as much as possible, but I mean, the reality is it's sport. It's yeah. I think I
100%.
was listening to Bo Sandoval today on a podcast, on the True Serum podcast, and he made a good point. He said, "Sport. How do you say sport by its very nature decreases our life expectancy, like
Yep.
versus a sedentary yeah, like you're putting reps and miles on the engine. Like,
Hmm.
I've redlined my engine a whole bunch of times, and at some point, that's really helped build the engine. And at some point, I'm in the red on that. Like, I'm taking away from the engine, right? And the key is, like, where is it? How does it best do it? But I would argue the amount of stress inoculation and training needed to make a better, healthier, long term life is less than what it takes to be the best at a sport. So choose one,
Hmm.
like, or
Yep.
choose this portion of my life will be to be the best at this sport, and after that I'm going to taper it back into this other thing, but realizes those reps counted. Like, I hate to say it, that's why they don't make big old men. You always talk about, hey, that little old man down the street. You never heard someone say that big old man
Big
down the
old man.
street. Like, big dudes don't generally last very long.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
sucks, but it's part of it.
Yeah. Um, I've got to ask about the Sarah Mars bell.
Yeah, sure.
That's it's one of the equipments again. Like the US fucking have it all, and it's again, as much as I hate to admit it, the Americans do fucking make great equipment. Like
We have an industry that supports it, though, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Oh, the Europe is so I like to say that US is like in modern times, UK is maybe Stone Age. The rest of Europe's like fucking far behind.
yeah,
But
every place has its little pockets of cool influence, but I mean, the U.S. has just made more of an industry of it. There's more, I mean, there's more dollars associated with
mm,
it, which brings more interest, which brings more reason to do well at a sport. I mean, it just is what it is,
yeah, but I tried the fat bells and I was like, this is the fat bells, the center mass bell, and I was
right?
like, there's one of the things is like the stability of a normal dumbbell,
Sure.
right? Like if you're really wanting to be strict with it, like because it's surrounded and then there's a handle in the middle, like
Mhm.
it's just nice.
Yeah, it is. It does. It's interesting because every design change in any direction brings a different response, right? So yes, the center mass bell is the only spherical bell that is the patent is actually for truly center mass in all three planes of motion. So your your center mass is exactly in the middle of your hand. Great. For some applications, that works exceptionally well. It's a very natural feeling load. It's, pressing, curling, pulling, like it feels like you just have heavy hands. It's great.
Mhm.
Now, every stressor has a negative effect and a positive effect. If you wanted to, like, the opposite would be an Indian club. An
Yep.
Indian club, the weight is far, or a mace, or, and so an Indian club would be on all three axes. It's out of, against a dumbbell would be two axes because you have a balance on either side. And so it's really on the continuum of where you want the stressor to be. Do you want it to be more on the wrist, the forearm, and the stabilizers having to get away or really minimize the amount of actual load that you need to give a stressor? The center mass bell allows, in my opinion, the most weight per arm to be used if you are trying to get the most weight onto the muscle group without incorporating all the other stuff. Does that make sense? So it's kind of a weird
100%.
way to look at it. That's where I tell people there's no thing that's better or worse than something else. It's just
Hmm.
to try to understand what you're attempting to accomplish. It's like flash frying something versus cooking in a crock pot. Both of them work. They just give you two significantly different uh,
Serious. Yeah.
outcomes: slow cooking or fast cooking. There's no better or worse. It's just what are you looking to accomplish? And that's where, as a true practitioner, if you know what stressor you're looking for, you could decide whether a center mass bell or an Indian club is a better tool for what you're
Hmm.
looking to accomplish.
No, I fell in love, and I kind of spoke to you at the beginning about my building the gyms and Sorinex website, and like that's I'd fucking go every single one of them.
They are nice. They're fun because you can obviously do everything you do with a dumbbell. But I was never a big kettlebell clean and snatch person. In
Mm,
my opinion, it was a bit of a contrived lift. It was kind of you're taking a tool that wasn't really meant to be snatched or cleaned, and then you were cleaning and snatching it because
sure.
you wanted to
Yeah.
do it with a kettlebell. It was just never. Where the center mass bell is a bit easy. You don't really have to think through it. You just like triple extend, slam your hand above your head, and the bell's there. So it kind of removes that stuff. It's nice to be able to throw it. I like it because in my room I have a nice floor, but I just drop them, and
Mm,
because they're spherical, the
the
bounce is
roll.
they just go boom boom. They just drop versus a dumbbell kicking everywhere. So I've just kind of realized from that side, I wouldn't necessarily suggest everyone drops them, but they're a bit safer. Um, so yeah, I like them. I could use them two hands. I throw them. I do a bunch of different stuff. For the most part, I probably use center mass bells more than I use dumbbells these days. Nothing against dumbbells. It's just I have CMBs at home. I like
Hmm.
them. I use them. And but then some exercises it's better to use a kettlebell for. Swings are generally better with a kettlebell
Hmm.
because of the distended arm, creates more velocity, more pull. Great. Farmers walks better with a kettlebell. They sit below you, and it's going to act a little bit more like a keel. And so that's where I really wish people would become more practitioners of the tools and just
Hmm.
know what each tool gives. A barbell gives a certain thing. A safety squat bar gives a certain thing.
I always say you're limited as your imagination with equipment.
Yes. But you also
Um,
have to know what to do, right? Like if my son
yeah,
goes in my toolbox,
100%.
he'll use a wrench as a hammer because it's hard, and but if you know what to do with it, that's where people always talk about the toolbox. Well, I want to see mechanics,
Hmm.
right? You can have all the tools in your toolbox. I want to see a true mechanic that could fix things and know when to use that tool.
I'll tell you something at the end that I'm working on. I think one of the first conversations that we've ever had was how you've built not just great products but incorporated the community as part of everything that you've done. And I am talking like that December, Squawktober, December, and then now the summer strong. How does that sort of start, and how do you think that the whole community's back this every step of the way?
I appreciate it. The none of it was meant to be a thing. Like none of it, like the landmine, like everything. Like none of it was meant to be this big thing. Squattober was Aaron Osmus and I on the phone 10 years ago, and I was like, "Hey, we ought to do a month on social media where we like celebrate the squat." We were talking about how much we both love the squat, and I said, "What if we do squat timber?" Because we were is in September at the
Hmm.
moment, and I realized it was already like September 15th. And I was like, well, maybe let's just do next month. It costs October. I mean, it was that simple. And we're like, all right, cool. And then the first year, we just posted cool stuff about squats. Like it was just, let's celebrate the squat. Squats, king of lifts, let's celebrate it. And then Aaron had the great idea to start actually, because people started asking him about programming, and then he started writing the programming. He said, "Well, if we're
Hmm.
going to celebrate the squat, well, let's tie people together and let's all do a collective stressor collectively together I didn't come up with it. I didn't think it was going to work. I mean, I didn't know if it was going to work or not work. I didn't think much of it. And he texted me. He's like, "Dude, everyone's asking me for this programming. Like, I think I want to do it." I said, "Yeah, hit it. See what happens." And I'd argue now it's the world's largest squat program. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people do it. I mean, I think year three we had people on all seven continents doing it. We've
Nice.
done on year 10. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people are doing it. I mean, it was written about in some big magazine one time. I can't remember, it was like Men's Health or something, but it's just wild. But it just shows that if you pull people together, that's what my dad always tried to do. He was a PE teacher, but he was always even in our gym, he was trying to pull people together. And there's so much division in the world, and so much division specifically in the strength conditioning world with haters and trolls and all this other bullshit. It's like, if you want to be irrelevant, if you're irrelevant to the point where you got to start a bar fight to be
Mm,
somebody, squarely screw off, man. I ain't got time for that. So I've always been of the mind, which Pops always showed me, like, bring something valuable to the table and try to include as many people as possible. And if they find it valuable, great. Maybe you made their life better. If they don't find it valuable, that's super fine too. Like, that's okay. If no one wants to do Squattober, if you want to talk shit about Squattober, easiest thing in the world, don't do it. If you find it interesting, then follow it if you choose to. If you choose to try it for 30 days, do it. If you hate it, don't do it again. If you like it, do it again. It's really that simple.
mhm,
It's free will, right? And we just go off of feedback of people. If they say, "Hey, this is awesome," some people like, "Hey, it changed my life." My wife, literally, we had someone say the husband and the wife, they couldn't get pregnant. They tried for X number of months or years or whatever. They both did Squattober programming. I don't know how much that had to do with anything, but they got pregnant during October, and they were like, we were lifting together, we had awesome chemistry. I assume hormones were probably flaring hard, and they
mm,
laughed and they sent us pictures of her being pregnant. And then later, when the child was born, they're like, "Hey, this is our Squattober baby. Thanks." I was like, "Well, I don't know. Y'all did the work." But what was cool was that the husband and wife started training together and doing something
mhm,
hard together. And that's the whole point of it. Is it the best programming in the world? No. Do people generally get strong? Yes. Do they generally get a PR? Yes. Did they do something hard for 30 days? Yes.
mhm,
It doesn't have to be much more difficult than that. And then, of course, some folks ask, "Well, do you ever do, deadlifting?" All right, well, let's try December. And then we program for that. People's deadlift went up. Great. We tried, we did spring cleaning about 7 or 8 years ago, just kind of as a joke. It didn't
I
really
caught
take
on
off.
too.
Well, it didn't really take off years and years ago because it was still Squattober, still so small. And then
Mm,
this year we did it with Travis Mash, and we took a guy that really understood how to program cleans. I mean, Travis is not only super smart, he's a heck of an athlete, and his athletes are always absolute studs. And then he programmed it for us. He said, "Do you mind?" I said, "Heck yeah!" And so got people doing the clean. Maybe people were hitting us saying, "I've never done a clean before, but I love Squattober, so I'm going to try this spring cleaning thing. This will give me an opportunity to learn the clean." Great. Maybe you only did it for that 30 days and you're like, "That sucked, but I'm not going to do it again." Fine. At least you're one step ahead of, a little bit more,
everyone
right?
else. Yeah.
And then benchuary. People had asked and asked and asked for benchuary. Well, we got Bill Gillespie had the biggest bench press of all time. Who better? Like, who better to program a bench press for those people who care? Did I do benchuary? No. My shoulder hurts. I'm not a bench press guy.
Mm,
I support it. I did some benching during that time, but I do the full program. No, I didn't. It's okay. I'm glad people did, and I'm glad they enjoyed it. And so
yeah.
that's what it's really always been. Like, we look at what would we want to do, what would we enjoy, like Summer Strong. What's the party that we would enjoy? Let's throw that party. If
Mm,
we're going to enjoy it, hopefully other people enjoy it. Then, of course, you take feedback. I think people overthink a lot of this stuff. They try to make the, like, "Oh, this has to be viral, and this has to do this, and this return on investment, and this has this
mm,
many clicks per this, and monetization, all this other bullshit." It's like, the easiest thing in the world is throwing a good party. You know why? Because unless you're a psychopath or a dumbass, throw the party you would want to go to.
mhm,
And if you don't suck as a person and you made a bunch into weird crap, you're probably going to throw a pretty good party. Other people will probably like it. And if you know, and when you do the first one, people will give you some suggestions. Hey, I'd like to see more of this. And if you're paying attention to the people who are there,
Hmm.
you're making sure they're having a better time. And it's so that's really how a lot of all of our big events have happened. It's let's do the thing that we would want to do, and maybe there are other people there like us. Pretty
Yeah.
simple.
I mean, I
You
think.
got to come to Summer Strong sometime, dude.
Oh, I need to. I do. I've been thinking about next year
Yeah.
really going across and doing some events because
Mhm.
again, it's a great. Like this podcast is predominantly US, but like I'm in the UK. uh,
Yeah.
so like, no, I
Well,
do
yeah,
need
you
to
could
because I need
go.
to catch up.
Yeah, you could get
Sorry.
straight to Charlotte, couldn't you, or New York or something, and
Yeah,
come over.
New
Maybe hit the
York's.
CSCCA, and then hit a couple places, and then hit Summer Strong as your capper. That'd be cool.
Yeah, no, New York is the easiest one. Again, East Coast is easier because there's direct flights from there.
Mhm.
Everywhere else, I think, have to be connected.
Yeah, yeah. I remember we went from like Newark straight over to straight to maybe Edinburgh, something like that, or
Hmm.
Glasgow. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, it's like a 7 hour deal. It's not that bad.
No, no, I definitely do. I do miss the US.
Yeah, come on
um,
over.
100%. I do need to. I do need to. Like especially now that I've got, and to your point earlier, it's like the clickbaity stuff and all that stuff. Like this podcast is coming up the second year, and it's now just getting some traction because I've never cared for the clickbaity shit. Like for me, I just like to make sure that the coaches look the best. And I've been asked this, like, why don't I try and make it more viral stuff? I was like, I don't
Yeah.
really give a fuck.
You could either you could either try the viral stuff. I mean, now sometimes stuff just goes viral because it just does.
Mm,
But I've generally found when you try to make that happen, you sell your soul in some way, and
yeah.
you walk away from the true content and the quality of what it could be. Um,
Adam
so
Fight said it the best, and it's something that I truly do believe in. And it's your aim should be to leave it better than you found it. And like that's my one true goal is like I want to offside, but my biggest fear is dying without having accomplished something. I'm
yes,
not scared of sharks, not scared of snakes. I happily walk through anything. But like that's the shit that keeps me up at night. And for me, like having known that I could have influenced a coach somehow because of the conversation or something, that to me is good enough.
exactly. You're exactly right. And if you keep that mindset, I mean, all of us has been, we want to know, did we make a difference? Are we relevant? And am I good enough? Right? Really, it boils down to, am I
Hmm.
good enough? Am I good enough to elicit a good response or a response? Some people are okay with a response. I'd prefer a good response.
Mm,
Like you said, I'd rather leave it better. I don't want to leave it different because I screwed up the place and left. And I think I don't know if you ever heard me talk about like the asterisk theory. And so when I was in college, I would read the all time list of like the hammer throwers, shot putters, whatever, and they some of them would have an asterisk, or even the sprinters, whatever. They had an asterisk beside, it. I'd go down the bottom and see what the asterisk was. Sometimes it's like, oh, this sprint was wind aided, but it's still the
mm,
top 10 of all time. It was wind aided, or this throw was the top whatever of all time, but it was, drug suspension or whatever. There was always an asterisk. And then the interesting, what I noticed was I'd sit in the training room and read track and field news. And then the next year, the thing would come out and the same names were on there. And I'd realize they still had the asterisks beside them. And I kind of
mm,
came to the realization, I was like, oh, this throw or this whatever was done in the 80s, which means that guy or gal is already retired. Their performance is still relevant because it's until they get pushed out of that top 100 or whatever, it's still on the list. But that freaking asterisk goes with it every time. And that's how I see it, like as your reputation.
mm,
And
mhm,
and so what I tell like our team, and what I've tried to tell my kids and I try to live by, and none of us are perfect. You're like, no asterisks. Never have that stuff that just carries with your name that everyone messes up. That's fine. Do the best you can to clean up the mess afterwards. But to intentionally put these black marks beside your reputation, because it's very hard for that to ever go away.
mhm,
And so that's what I tell our guys when they're working with customers, like always try to be as professional as possible, be as helpful as possible, because stuff just goes with you. And so like that no asterisk mentality, that's don't screw it up, which
Mhm.
is what you're basically saying is yes, go in there and leave the place where they go, you know what? I'm glad Manny was here. Like it was really good having him here on this podcast, this show, this earth. You know,
Yep.
you want the relevance, right? Like that's I believe every man wants to know he mattered.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think that's why all of us are doing this, right? It's not about the money. It's it's
Uh,
it's
Definitely
it's
not.
about it's about making a difference in a kid's life, in your own life, in your
Mm.
family's life, and maybe inspiring someone you've never met that listens to this podcast, and they later go, "Oh my gosh." Maybe they're the perfect age to hear the message that one of
Mm.
us or one of our other guests says or you say that resonates in their brain for the next 30 years that they build a little mantra off of. And like, how cool is that to know that if we're truly trying to do a good job, trying to take as many shots on goal as possible to make that happen, there's probably a lot of really, really good stuff out there that has made the world better because of us. And then if you die later on that day, that you know there's probably a high probability that a lot of people will go, man, that sucks that Manny's gone. He really added a lot.
Mm.
Like, did we ask for any more?
For me, it was very humbling working in the US and hearing Coach Manny. Like
Mhm.
that in the US isn't a like
Right.
it's something it's a respectful thing that athletes do that to coaches that they trust and like and believe in.
Yeah.
In the UK that's not a thing. Like I'd
Mhm.
never been called and I've been technically coaching since I was 14, right?
Wow.
S&C in the gym. Again, I started when I was 13 in a performance program and just carried through. But I'd never been called Coach Manny ever until I went to the US. And they kind of took me back. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, is it a good thing? And like, he was like, yeah, that's a respectful thing. And I was like,
Right.
damn, like, it's for me, it kind of like, it's a weird feeling to be like, I appreciate you, coach. And it's like, I'm just doing my job. But to them, it's like, well, my goal is to get to the NFL. So you helped me get there a step closer. I was like,
Right.
yeah. And I was like,
Yeah, and you
this
have that job
appreciation.
because and you have that job because you were one of the chosen ones that they felt that could help them get there, right? Because
Mhm.
if you weren't good at it, you wouldn't be there.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so yeah, that is your goal and your job, which is
I
awesome.
think as well, like, so when I was an athlete, um, when I was going up for some national trials for rugby, and one of my coaches, who was a coach for my team, but he was also the development coaches, he sat us down, and this has stayed with me, and this is how I live my life. And the phrase was, "Shy boys don't get sweets." That was it. And like that just completely like flipped a switch. And like everything that comes across my desk now, I'm like, fucking let's swing for it. Shy boys don't get
There you
sweets, let's
go, man.
fucking go. And to me, like the US only happened because I saw this opportunity and I signed up. I didn't even think about it. I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to get it, but fuck it, let's go. Shy boys don't get sweets.
I'm writing it
And
down right now. That's great.
yeah,
Yeah, and
it's
I guess I would call that what I call the open door theory. Most
mm,
people I see they walk down the hallway of life looking at their phone or they're maybe looking at that far off plan and they're looking at that door and they don't realize all the open doors or cracked doors that they're walking past. And they're the same people that go, dude, you get to do so many cool things. You get to blah 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 blah. Almost all of it has come from a door that was open for me or cracked open that I had decided to explore by my
mm,
own volition, or someone was like, hey, would you like to come out for the track team? Or would you like to come lift with me? Or would you like to? And I said yes. And I walked through the open door. And then maybe there's a different hallway with other open doors. And the people I've noticed that always are saying, you get to do so much cool stuff, nothing cool ever happens to me. They're always the people that are never walking through open doors. They're the shy boys that are never getting the sweets and they wonder why they're never getting the sweets. And I also say, what open doors did you walk through this year?
mm,
Well, I mean, I was busy. I had to do this. I was all right. So you were focused on some far off plan that will never actually happen. And you missed all these opportunities.
mhm,
And, I've had people say, well, I'm going to come to Summer Strong one year. It ain't that hard. It's not like going to the
mhm,
moon, right? Like, then buy the ticket and get your ass in the car and start driving. And by the time it's a bad idea, you'll be halfway there. It
Mm-hmm.
ain't that hard, And so, but I've noticed the people in my life that are hyper successful, that have these amazing lives, they walk through open doors or even cracked doors. They walk through them constantly. And the people that are doing the same dumb shit 25 years later and still pissed off their life isn't going anywhere, they don't do anything different.
Mm-hmm.
They're shy boys, like you said. It's the same mantra. It's
Yeah.
the same mantra. I love it. I'm gonna write up that up on my board. It's great.
I love it. I love it. No, like that's the whole like idea of the will guest is like it's uncomfortable to send a message knowing that that the coach might not get it and I might not get a response. But in my head, I'm like, at least I fucking tried. Like at least
Yeah,
that message was out there and they might get to it.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And what's the worst that could happen? It was 30 seconds of your time.
So this is something that I've openly said this on the podcast and while I'm speaking during my speaking engagements, people come up as like how should I look at speaking at coaches and approaching them? I was like, okay, shy boys don't get sweets. But like in my head, it's like the worst that's going to happen, right? The absolute worst is you get a no.
Yeah. They might
That's
even
the
cuss
worst.
you out with a no, but you can just walk away if they start cussing
Yeah.
you out.
But the thing is, like, if you got the no or you didn't send the message, you were in
Mhm.
the exact same fucking spot.
Exact same spot.
So it's
Exact
like
same.
just fucking swing for it.
100%. You ever, well, I'm sure you've seen the movie Rocky.
Yep.
I just rewatched it with my wife. She had not seen it before. And it was a part of, I loved it. He was sitting at the bar with this bartender and he was watching Apollo Creed on TV, and they were talking. He was talking about whatever, and the bartender said, "Oh, that guy's a chump," whatever, and he made some kind of remark about him. And Rocky said, "What are you talking about? He's the champ. He's the best." And he goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, but he took a shot. He went after it. He took a shot. What did you ever do? Talking to
Mm,
the bartender. And I thought it was so brilliant that a guy who was kind of at the low dregs of society, which Rocky was at the time, he still respected the guy that took the shot and still realized that the guy that's talking negative about it didn't ever take the shot.
mm-hmm.
And that was basically the whole premise of the movie. Like, are you going to be one of the guys that takes the shot? Are you going to send the email? Are you going to ask the girl out? Or are you going to be the shy boy? Like, what's going to happen? Because otherwise, the world isn't set up for your situation to change with no stimulus. It's just not.
100%.
There's too much competition of other people that will go get that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's people that will just ask the question or walk through the door are strangely enough so rare. That's why in some way competition is hard, and in some ways it's really easy because most people are too chicken shit to do anything about it. And so you're left with like 30% of the population that will actually make a move. And then so then you don't even have to beat 100% of the population. You just have to be in the top 10 of the 30% of the population that actually cares enough to go do something, which is
Mm-hmm.
significantly easier than being the top guy in the world, right? Yeah.
It's always like you have to give a shit, and I think
Yeah.
that's where people like they're content being content.
Great. The rest of us will go
Fucking
walk
win.
through open doors. Yeah, no, it's like, okay, if you don't, if you're not that against losing, cool. Like I'm vehemently opposed to it.
Mm.
I've lost a ton, but I don't like it.
Oh, 100%. Like there's some shit that I've tried and I was like, that did not work. You fucking
No,
pivot.
yeah. I'm going to take shots until I start getting on target. So,
100%. I appreciate you so much for coming on
yeah,
and
brother, it
spending
was fun.
some time with me. If you, again, everyone fucking knows you and what you do, but if you want to link your stuff as well.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Bert Sorin on Instagram. Yeah, Bert Sorin right there. I guess all whatever. Um, Sorinex.com, Sorinex on all of our. You got Sorinex, Sorinex Outdoors, Sorinex Squattober, December, all kinds of different stuff on IG. Shouldn't be too hard to find if you need me.
It's not, I'll link everything as well.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank
Manny,
you
it
so
was
much.
super fun talking with you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. This was super enjoyable.
No, it's something that I'm trying to get more. Not that I care for people's followings, but it's a little bit harder to reach some of you guys. But like again, shy boys don't get sweet, so I fucking try and swing.
There you go. Good deal. I appreciate you swinging. It worked out.
No, I really appreciate it. And it's
Yep.
very nice to know that. even at the top of your game, like you're still down to sit down for 2 hours and
Oh, heck yeah.
talk shop.
I enjoy it. I learned some stuff, so I got to go write my notes down.
Appreciate it. Peace.
Thanks, Manny. I'll see you next summer at Summer Strong. Make that trip.
100%.